couldn't believe that there's still guys doing this kind of thing. I'm into sports. I've always been into sports, but as soon as I found jousting, I dropped all the rest of my sports. And I bought my own horse, I made my own suit of armor, and that's all I think about now is jousting, jousting, jousting.
It's funny, you know, it all comes from a childhood dream, growing up in a horse farm in Acton, Ontario, having that dream, wanting to be a knight. And I'm one of those kids that laid down his cowboy hat and put on a barrel helm and wanted to make that dream come true. And sure enough, I did. You know, I stayed determined, and I didn't let anything get in my way of having that dream come true. And then once it did, well, then I realized that other people shared the same passions, shared the same dreams, shared the same love of the horse, and of course of that combat, that you know, the joust itself. And I was able to build a team of international competitors from all over the world, and what we have now is the Knights of Valor.
I get really worked up, and I have to work at keeping myself down because the horse really reads off the rider, and I'm just that type. I do get all worked up, so I keep myself down, and I try not to let myself get too much into anything, whether I just beat the last guy and I'm ready to go on or whatever. But right at the very end, when you're in that final match and then you hear your name called, yeah, that's the big moment right there.
Every sport, you know, any extreme sport has its dangers. Ultimate fighting has its dangers. Football has its dangers. Hockey has its dangers. Rodeo has its dangers. Jousting, well, it has a lot of dangers. Of course, jousting is recognized as one of the most violent sports in the world because of that impact force. No sport, man versus man, entails with that amount of impact, that amount of force. You know, when you look at a 2,000-pound war horse and a rider in armor at 500 pounds on top of his back, that's 2,500 pounds of force traveling at a speed of 30 kilometers an hour against the same opposing force. It's up there. You could take two of the biggest NHL defensemen and have them skate full speed and collide center ice, and that force pales in comparison to what those guys were facing out there every time they went down that joust list. The sport over the past 20 years has increased in popularity, increased in momentum, and then of course with the TV show Full Metal Jousting, that's kind of set us up here. So now we're recognized all around the world as that elite sport, as that extreme equestrian sport that once was a Super Bowl of all sports, now making a step back into the mainstream. And well, we just did it here.